Welcome back. The panel is here. Of course, radio talk show host Hugh Hewitt, whose show has become an essential destination for the Republican candidates these days. Rachel Maddow, host of the Rachel Maddow Show on MSNBC, who moderated the First in the South presidential forum with all three Democratic candidates on Friday. Gwen Ifill, anchor of PBS NewsHour, a good friend of the show. And Mark Caputo, a Miami-based reporter for Politico. Nobody owns the political space in Florida like Mark with Rubio and Jeb Bush these days. So thanks for coming up, and
thanks for having me.
Go Canes.
Go Canes.
Hugh, now we know what this is really about.
Yes, exactly. Hugh, let me start with what you heard from Dr. Carson. I think he's going to go the media's being unfair route. This is a standard practice when Republicans are under fire. Is it going to work for him?
Well, to quote Dr. Kissinger, it has the additional benefit of being true. What he had as an objection to this week is there were 4 scandals, but only 2 were reported. Marco Rubio does not have a scandal. Ben Carson does not have a scandal. Hillary, however, had her non-disclosure agreement revealed by Lachlan Marquet at the Washington Free Beacon, and Reuters obtained a letter from the Teneo Group refusing to answer any questions about Hillary Clinton. So there were 4 scandals. 2 of them were real, involving Hillary Clinton. They were not reported. One about Ben Carson, West Point, not a scandal, heavily media, and the one about Marco Rubio was all puff.
Why is it not a scandal?
Because
the West Point, I got a full scholarship to West Point?
Because a direct admission was actually fairly common in the 70s. I have no doubt that someone at the ROTC said to Ben Carson, we'll get you in. Come to West Point. I have no doubt, because it was fairly common in the 70s and the 80s. So I do not believe you can prove a negative.
But he's sort of obviously he's a very distinguished retired surgeon. Since retiring as a surgeon, he's basically a professional biographer. And that's what he does. He sells and sells and sells and sells his autobiography. There are a lot of things, the most dramatic things in his autobiography, all of which are favorable to him, all of which have helped sell himself as this amazing person who ought to be president, which cannot be corroborated, including the factual statement that you can get a full scholarship to West Point. It doesn't even work that way.
A young man who, yes, it does. Direct admissions are full scholarships. It's just vernacular.
Nobody pays.
Nobody pays.
Right.
Nobody pays. So everyone
nobody gets a scholarship. It's
but
not
here's
like
the question:
he got offered to West Point and didn't have to pay when other people would have to. That's the impression that he gave the way he told his own story.
If you get into Yale and you are an ROTC student, do you really doubt that someone came to him and said, you need to go to West Point, we will get you in by direct admit, you don't have to pay? Do you really doubt that happened?
But what I doubt is a person ought to be president on the basis of their autobiography when they sell that to the country as, I was offered a full scholarship to West Point and I turned it down because I didn't need it. You weren't offered a full scholarship to West Point. You didn't apply to West Point. Nobody gets a full scholarship to West Point. And if you're selling yourself, you're not selling it truthfully.
Gwen, you've been on the trail a long time over the years. Personal stories.
Thanks for
no. I mean, and I guess that to me the danger for Dr. Carson is the fact that his candidacy is built on biography and built on honesty.
It is built on saying, this is who I am, these are my bootstraps, and we all admire that. The interesting thing about people, the outsiders we talk about so much, is that they all seem surprised what it takes to run for president. And what it takes to run for president is scrutiny. When Dr. Carson says there has never been scrutiny like there has been directed at him, that is just not so. I think, we were all there. We were all there when Bill Clinton went through the whole thing with the killing Vince Foster, with the airstrip in Mena, Arkansas. We're talking about Barack Obama's birth certificate years after he was president. There's always this scrutiny, and each and every one of time, those folks hated it. They complained it. They felt like victims. And of course, this is the way Dr. Carson, who has great self-regard, as he deserves to, because he accomplished a lot.
But his objection to the double standard. This week there is the NDA story in the Free Beacon. There is the story of Teneo refusing to answer. And Mrs. Clinton is not being covered in the same way Ben Carson is being covered.
And Mrs. Clinton would say, you know,